Yellow. So, I've just opened up the live stream on the YouTube side and the X side. I've got the space going, so anyone who wants to join in chat can possibly do that. So, what are we doing here today? I have made an alpha release of Expo Desktop, which I have named the beta release. That's what I call the pre-release. I've realised I should really call it an alpha, but I kind of thought let's hope it's beta worthy. It turns out it's not. Something's not fully working, so I'm going to be trying to get to the bottom of that. I've got it actually on test in a breakpoint right now. What we can do is we can do Expo Desktop create app, and it successfully gives us a blank TypeScript template. But what it doesn't successfully do is when you actually try to run the pre-build, it only gives you the iOS and Android folders. So I'm trying to get to the bottom of why there's no macOS and Windows folders. And it turns out this get config call we're doing right here inside the pre-build command, that we imported from Expo config, and that does something whereby it reports your platforms as iOS and Android, even though your app JSON, as we can see here, has got all 4 platforms inside it. So I'm going to look into what we can do about that. First port of call. First thing we need to do is find the equivalent code in our source code. So here we are. I've got packages, Expo Desktop source pre-build command. Here's the TypeScript sources, and this get config command, I want to see whether we have our own equivalent of that. So right here in the pre-build command, we're using @expo/config. But if I switch over to the command.ts belonging to create app, I want to see whether we've got something similar to that we've already forked, because I know we use get config elsewhere, I'm pretty sure. We should be excluding JS, probably. This thing, I don't get this. Visual Studio Code, man. This search thing, I can never figure it out. It just doesn't respect your git ignores. I've tweaked every setting I can on this thing, and it's just bringing up all my build files, so I always end up having to do that. Build and iOS and macOS to just ignore some of those. Okie dokie, so get config usages, we are importing from @expo/config each time, which means we do not have our own separately maintained version of get config that understands how to read expo-config.platforms. So let's actually dive in here and try to understand why get config is reporting the platforms unfaithfully. So I am actually going to set a breakpoint on the JavaScript. For this, we have a get config somewhere in here. Oh, this will be fun. Get config somewhere inside here. Lovely common JS, very hard to navigate. Where's the default export? Oh. Hang on. Get config is going to be the default export of get config, which we are inside. And default is E. Where's our default? Don't know if I'm totally overlooking something. Dynamic and static. Well, we're not asking for either of those. I'm completely missing something here. JSON file data. I mean, obviously I could try like digging in, but breakpoints often don't work too reliably then. I'm just going to try doing a new clean pre-build with JavaScript debug terminal, got breakpoint there, and we're going to see if it lets us step inside. Often I have quite a bad time with this, but step inside, get config. Great, it's right here. All right, sweet. I guess I didn't need this. Bit confusing, but okay. So what's hotkey for this? F10. So we'll step over these things and read out all these little things, get package JSON and path. So what have we got so far? We've got a root config. What does that mean? Expo. And we see there is the platforms iOS, Android, macOS, Windows faithfully reproduced. So why is it coming out as iOS and Android? We're going to step over this. Where do we go? Fill and return config. Ooh. Step in. How do we do that? F11? F11. All right. Great. Config with default values. So this ensure config as default values is probably important, isn't it? So where does this come from? I think it feels like this might be something I forked. And the defaults are names like version description, platforms. Okay. Get platforms from config is also going to be very relevant here. So let's certainly put a breakpoint over here. But might as well have a breakpoint here. Or like here. Okay, well we're just gonna maybe overshoot it and then see where exactly the problem happens. So the Expo config has already got the correct platforms at this stage. We shall go inside here. Now, if you have exp platforms, it respects those. Oh, what's this experiments out of true platforms? That looks very relevant. Okay. Interesting. Need to read this properly. So this is possibly a gift that has been given to us by Philip. I wonder which version of Expo config are we actually pulling in here? 56. Okay. Right. Yeah. So part of the reason this blindsided me is I've been developing against a mixture of Expo SDK versions, and this definitely feels like a rather possibly new feature added, a new behavioral tweak. So we don't have an experiments thing. So if you did provide in your app.json an experiments outer tree platforms, and then we just had macOS, Windows, and there, for example, I'm going to have to figure out whether that's really how it's supposed to work. We'll come back and do another pre-build with this filled in next time around. Now, if you don't have outer tree platforms, which is our current case, we fall into this case. We check the current platforms, which is iOS, Android, Mac, Windows, and it's going to filter through to only the first class platforms. So actually, out of tree platforms, I'm not clear whether this is meant to be like this could even be a true false. If you just put a true in here, then you're good to go. So let's look into what happens if I'm going to actually search in the Expo code base. Have I got that lying around? Let's go online. Expo CLI. Hang on. I've just spotted we have a source git in the Twitter, what do you call it? Twitter space. Nice to see you. Let's see. So pull requests. What am I looking for? I need to look just for the search term out-of-tree platforms and just see what the type is for that. Typing. Great. It's a Boolean. All right, sweet. Sweet. Yes, please. Okay. So in theory, if I did that and if I were to kill... So we'll see the problem initially. We've got platforms as just iOS, Android now. If we kill the clean pre-build at this point and do another clean pre-build, now we've got experiments out-of-tree platforms on, clear that, go. This time around, we should hit the alternative case. We jump straight over this and our platform should be faithfully kept. Yes. Alrighty. And then our platform survives here, iOS, Android, macOS, Windows. And that's exactly what we want. We have package with defaults. Key version platforms. Yeah, alright. And then if we continue to let it play through, just all the way at this point, my hope is that the clean pre-build just goes. And we will get macOS and we'll see macOS and macOS and Windows folders. That's great. So I asked for it to be called My App 2 and it's been called My App 2. Windows though, it keeps things on My App for reasons, for very good reasons, and to be honest, I think it would be good for everyone if what's it called, the Xcode files were to adhere to that same convention. There's really no reason for these Xcode projects to need to follow the name of your app. It just creates more headaches in the pre-build process. Okay, so that's something we want to make sure exists in our templates. So what's the best place to do that? I remember there was a place where we fill in some stuff. I'm going to search for CF bundle name. That might get me in the right area. Not this, these, none of these. Get pre-build config. I think what we can do is in the pre-build step, we're gonna want config dot experiments dot out of tree platforms. Okay, I've done this wrong. If there's no config experiments, what's that? Then we can actually avoid the condition here altogether, just always make it true. Alright, so if ever you're doing a pre-build and your the platforms you've asked to pre-build includes macOS or equally Windows, we will just make sure you've got out-of-tree platforms in your app config. Out-of-tree platforms is needed for you know what? I'm not sure I need to explain this. Maybe just the first comment would do. Okay, that ought to do the trick there, but I really want to have it in sort of 2 places. Yeah, in our default config, we want a bit of that'll do it. That doesn't make any sense. Like, wait, come on, man. This. Whose Expo config typing is this? Is this mine? No, it's theirs. So, why is Windows suddenly allowed? Shouldn't be. Shall we just do... Well, don't know why it's... Maybe it... this seems very strange. It seems as if it's just looking... It just wants the last compilation error. And then a single TS expect error will just say, you know what, let's just say this whole thing passes. Very strange. Okay. Requires typings from... So what does this land in? What version of... 57. Experiments, right, okay. So config types. Huh, I'm surprised I didn't make it into config types because it's in Expo config, but I guess 56.0.5 is too old. I mean, now would be a good time for me to update dependencies, but just kind of one thing at a time. I've got a kind of working configuration, so I don't really want to shake the nest too much. Okie dokie. What else can we do here? I mean, we could... Let's check what conventions we use in our templates. So in the bare minimum template, it really is bare. And we're actually leaning a lot on this default config, whereas in the blank TypeScript template, it is more like... Sorry, not the package JSON. Looking for the app JSON. Interesting, yeah. So we follow the Expo conventions, which is we don't fill in the list of platforms here, and we leave that to this default config thing. I'm sort of wondering where platforms is. Okay. Okay, so at this point, I think we can actually cut a release. So I think I had a fix me note which needs removing. Okay. Close other tabs. Just do my git over here. So what is the theme of this? This is going to be a fix platforms, avoid out of tree Ocarina of Time platforms. Avoid out of tree platforms being filtered out at pre-build time. Okay, that will be straight to main, I think. And while we're doing that, we shall make a release. So the way I go about this is I do a PNPM. We're still in the beta track, so we do a PNPM R1 is release 1. Because I don't really think in terms of change set, add, change set version, change set release. I think of the first command, the second command, and the third command. So R1, which packages were affected by changes we made? I'm kind of surprised it didn't auto detect that. Maybe because in a separate problem, I've got the release tags are not successfully pushing, so I need to ask the my CI maintainer about that. The CI maintainer being fully LLM based. One thing I probably can't compete with is on the human versus LLM side is CI flows. CI, they're really quite good at that. Okay. So what are we doing? We are gonna update which packages? Collapsal. Expo Desktop pre-built config and Expo Desktop itself. So this one. And then the actual templates are fine. And it's going to be none of those. None of those, and it's going to be a patch release. And we're just going to pick that same message there. Control A, avoid, Control E. Alrighty. So I will do, what that has done is it's made a change set over here, which says we want to patch each of these two, and we want to associate this change set message with them. And we are going to do PNPM R2, meaning release 2, release step 2, which maps to our change set run version command, and then it updates the PNPM lock file. So what version does is it consumes all change sets that you've got queued up. The reason I do this lock file only install right after that is because usually, well, basically always, when you've done a bump, it's going to visit every single one of your packages that are dependent, that are impacted by that bump. So here, the things we asked for were Expo Desktop itself to get bumped, and also Expo Desktop pre-built config to get bumped. But as a side effect, our demo app inside the monorepo, which depends on the pre-filled config, which we just bumped, that also gets bumped by change sets, and that has a consequence on our PNPM lock. So yeah, I do the install at this stage so that I can mutate the lock file so that when we do the actual CI run, we can run CI on a frozen lock file. So I'm going to commit this. What should I call this? R2? What's consume change set? Okay. And then, yeah, so this leaves a bunch of like finished pre-release change sets in the pre-folder. I'm still getting used to change set. It might be there's something kind of missing from my setup, but for now, all I know is that if I push this to main, it's going to trigger a release. I don't actually use the release 3 step because I've set up trusted publishing, so all my actual releases are fully done by CI. They're fully authenticated and everything, and I actually can't package, like I can't publish any of these packages by simply doing npm publish anymore. It's all done by machine. And I'm quite proud of the workflow I've got for this. So we go into our YAML, and I don't know why the IDE can't resolve this, but it's a nice and elegant flow. And it only installs the npm, the actual packages in the workspace that actually need to be installed. It's nice and elegant, by using as few lines as possible to describe what it's trying to do. So it's building in dependency order, and you can express that with just that lovely command there. So yeah, and one thing I really like is how this thing runs in 38 seconds. How amazing is that? And that will have published a certain number of packages to npm. No change sets found. Will be published. Huh? Why did I say no change sets found? Because it's also said it's found 2 things to publish. 5 packages already published. Created git tabs. Failed to read change sets. Okay. That's probably why the git tags aren't coming up. Now the question is, did this result in a release or not? I am going to first check. Where to go? I want to go to npm.js. Let's do our screen. npm.js. Okay. Got my packages. It's taking too long. Oh, I'm already here. Sorry. I'm blind. Right. Bare minimum. Blank TypeScript. No, it's prefig. Prebuild config. That's one of the ones we bumped. Yeah. Versions, did we just get a reversion 3 minutes ago? Okay, so some of it's working. Some of it's working. And let's check Expo Desktop versions. Yeah, 3 minutes ago. Sweet. Which means we can now try all of this again. Okay, I'm going to delete all my experiments. So we do a rumref of my app, my apps. Oh, and that's going to cause Visual Studio Code to go, oh no, you're deleting me. So close it. And now we are going to run the commands, which I have written down. We're going to do bonx this Expo Desktop app beta, we're going to do create app from the latest blank TypeScript template. To be honest, I could have kept my old repo in place and just done a whole new pre-build, but whoopsie. Bing, bing, bing. I'm just going to take all the defaults. Oh, cool. So this is another thing I had in my pipeline. It was if you're not on Windows, do tell you the command button on Windows, but do clarify you need to use Windows to actually benefit from it. So we're going to cd into my app, and then we're going to do the next command, which is we're going to again pick our latest beta of the Expo Desktop CLI. We're going to ask for a pre-build command, and the template we're going to specify is the latest beta of the bare minimum template. So when this thing comes out of beta, we don't even need to specify the template. It's just going to it's going to default to the latest Expo Desktop template bare minimum anyway. I'm passing the no install flag because I'm install runs both the pnpm install or the bun install and also CocoaPods. And CocoaPods, you're going to be sitting there several minutes waiting for Hermes to install for both iOS and macOS and all other CocoaPods. And when I'm doing this rapid development, I'm actually more concerned in the steps upstream of the CocoaPods install. So I don't want to waste my time there just yet. Finish pre-build. So that's how fast a pre-build can be if you skip the CocoaPods install. It's so fast. So we're going to open up code here. We're going to see, yes, sweet. It's given us a Windows and macOS folder. So that means, for sure, Experiment Salad Tree platforms made it into the Expo config. That's great. Which then means we can try running a macOS build on this thing. We've not actually done the install yet. So how about this time we try running a clean pre-build, but with installs. Yeah. And see if this all goes to plan. Let's do it up here. Oh, whoops! I didn't do a clean pre-build. So why didn't it install anything? Reusing. Right. You'd have thought it would run and install. All right, let's do a clean. Let's see if it remembers to install. Yep. So there we are. That is the CocoaPods install for iOS coming up. There's a good chance this fails. Who knows? Hopefully we get this as any. Hopefully it just works. And in the meantime, we can be asking the ChatGPT what my CI failure meant. Copy that. In fact, you know what? Let's do the whole context here. I'm going to do the ChatGPT prompt off screen as let's see. There's other super secret projects in the sidebar that I don't necessarily want to show. Okay, Expo Desktop, new chat. We're going to do. Okay, I can have the sidebar. Let's give this a go. I just ran. Oops. Get actions run. Publishing succeeded by pushing to main while I still had change sets. Copy. After having run publishing to npm succeeded, but no tags came up. What gives? I'm going to do a fork of change set. No tags. Tags were not successfully pushed, and no GitHub releases populated. Let us treat ourselves to Sol. So I like using frontier models. I think although you can go for low cost models, often you spend a lot more time kind of shaking them by the shoulders and being exasperated by what they do. So I think you've got to pick like a high success task if you're going to use a low cost model. I think as low cost models go, Luna, I really like Luna. It can stick at a task for a long time. And it will quite happily drive an IOS simulator and verify something. In great contrast to Composer, which cuts an unbelievable amount of corners, for example. But yeah, as long as I've got tokens, I like to just go in straight with Sol, the smart one. So this was while we were in the middle of something. We were waiting for our pod install. Okay, sweet. So I'm just going to cat this package.json, CFR scripts came in. We got, see, this that is something we'll have to fix. It's got the wrong command in there right now. Now this is something I have code to address, but for some reason that code isn't being hit. So I need to figure out why it's doing that. So if I just search for that string there, so it's only if this condition gets triggered that they sort of get, the package.json scripts get upgraded from like Expo Go commands to React Native CLI commands. One thing that would actually make this a heck of a lot easier is if I just baked into the template like the end game commands, but I don't know. I think I'm just facing a skill issue here. I need to introspect why it's not upgrading the scripts. Okay, so let's focus on this then. This is inside sanitize template async. It belongs to Expo Desktop common. Okay. So to actually debug this, when is this going to happen? Is this going to be during the create app stage or the pre-build? Sanitize template async. This happens in common. Okay, this happens at create app time. Hmm. Hmm. Ah, and this is the one. This is the one that happens at pre-build time. So I'm suspecting, possibly due to these escapes, the strings are not quite matching or something. We need to get a breakpoint in here in the built version. So we need to run a pre-build. Is this gonna run on only clean pre-builds? Oh, does this never get? That's no good. Oh no. No one ever calls that. This is some fossil code. Ah, I have two versions of this. Two versions of this function, quite possibly. Source prebuild expo, source prebuild directly in there. So this one is not hooked up. This one is hooked up. Oh, that's confusing. So this one right here calls into... Hang on. I'm so lost. Source prebuild. Yes. Ah, okay, update. Update from template async does... Okay, so this is the one we need to update because it's actually hooked up to prebuild command. And if you look inside update package JSON async, presumably the modify package JSON command, look inside here, update package scripts. This is a thing that needs to be brought in line with this. So this had the changes we wanted. Delete. Fossil code. So all this code here is from a previous, it's from when the repo had a bit of a different structure. I was taking a bit of a different approach to making the fork, and so while this was used in one stage of the app, it no longer is. So let's figure this out. Update package JSON. So we just need to copy these lines across, I think. Right. Probably just an operation like this. So that's being used by nothing because I alt-click on it and nothing happens. That function right there isn't even exported, it's only used by that. This update package dependencies is only used internally here, okay. And then diff keys isn't exported. Create dependencies map is only used within this file. Just seeing if I can safely delete the whole file. This is only used in here. Hash for dependency map is only used here and create file hash strings. Okay, so we should be able to delete that altogether. And then do a fix This logic of upgrading scripts. And so that's something that pertains to Expo Desktop itself. So we can do a pm r1, select Expo Desktop just on its own. It's going to be a minor, the thing smaller than mine, it's going to be a patch. And did I grab this message? Pre-build. Okay. pm r2. Stage change set. And oh man, what's it suggesting I should do? Okay. Package.json. So I'm going to try making it so that the push that we do now inherits, actually gets tags to be pushed properly. Alright, so scripts custom change set. I have my own wrapper around change set to meet the strange needs of this monorepo, which I'll get into in a moment, but let's focus on the task. So we have to do no source publish. All right, publish.ts. If one of these gets published or imported, well, let's see how that goes. But okay. Try fixing tagging packages. Make this work for template releases as well. Yep. So while it chugs away at that, I shall explain the Rube Goldberg machine here. So our monorepo has got a bunch of things that other monorepos that are totally usual. So it's got packages, it's got apps, but it's also got some weird things like these templates. I have blank minimum and blank TypeScript, And neither of these are actually hooked up. If you see PnPm workspace here, I've deliberately kept them out of the list of packages. And changeset kind of assumes that everything in the monorepo is going to be hooked up. Anything that isn't is something you don't ever want to publish a package for. Now, the reason I'm not hooking them up is because I have no interest in installing some of these heavy dependencies and dev dependencies, because this is a template I'm not actually going to run an app from. These templates I kind of make blind. I suppose there is possibly an argument for why don't you just install the dependencies and stop having such a snowflake. But I don't know, I want to keep my repo fast to install and not have more dependencies in it than it needs to be. And that's one of the reasons why my CI runs in 43 seconds. So what I do is I make sure that these workspaces are not hooked up, and as a consequence I have to make my own sort of wrapper around changeset. Whoops, Jesper, no. Okay, well, test passed. I make my own wraparound changeset which can cope with things like not only packages which aren't hooked up, but multiple versions of same name packages. So in future I'm going to have like SDK version 55 equivalents of these packages, standing side by side in the same repo. Okay, ChatGPT, it's just gonna do that stuff. Okay. One of these days, if they can make frontier class LLMs 10 times faster, ideally 100 times faster, then we'd be talking. That'd be seriously good. But sometimes I feel like it takes an awfully... Some of the things it's doing right here, you wonder, why are you wasting your time on that? Still though, I'm glad to take the burden off my mind, because I came here to develop Expo Desktop. I really did not come here to spend any amount of my mind like working on a releases procedure. So yeah, I'm glad, even if this is pretty half-baked, like 80% satisfactory, 80% perfect. It does what is needed, does the minimum that's needed for my repo. And yeah, that liberates me. So I'm quite happy with that. But boy, does it take its time. Ooh, I could do with a coffee. Alrighty, well I think things are kind of slowing down here because I'm just waiting on this LLM, and as mentioned, I need my coffee. I think it's been a good 1 hour of progress, so I'm going to leave it at that. See you all next time, and hope we get a little bit closer to Expo Desktop each time. Ciao ciao for now.